Good morning. This is Virtual PBX admin training. Got a slightly early start here, so I'll wait a couple minutes for people to get signed in. You'll see in the description of this video that I've included the links for the business SMS registration webinar that we had a couple weeks ago. Introduction to Zapier, which is basically talking about webhooks, the ACDQ's Pro demo, which is about the call center feature, and then the advanced reporting demo, which is for the advanced reporting feature. Uh, and most of those are just because those are harder for me to show via the training, so just easier to have them have their own videos. We do record these trainings. They're about an hour and a half long, give or take. Basically depends on load times and or if I make a mistake. Feel free to make use of YouTube's chat feature to ask a question about any given feature, and I will try to get back to it as I see the question. The other advantage of recording the trainings is you can grab the link and share it with other staff members who need to be system admins on your account, or so you can come back to it at a later date if you need a refresher. Now let me get a couple other things prepped and then we can get started here. All right, so here you see our dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. This is a page I do recommend bookmarking. You can also get here from the virtualpbx.com main page. There's a blue bar towards the top of the page, and there's a login link there. To get logged in, we need 3 pieces of information. The first is your email address that you used to log in with, basically that you used to sign up with us. Then we need your password. And then lastly, we need your account name, which is typically your company name. Now, if you don't have this or you don't remember your password, typically speaking, then down here at the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, you want to click on the Forgot Your Info link. And when we click on that, it flips the box around. And first, we still need your email address. The main thing to remember about the email address on the login page or even on this page is to make sure it's in all lowercase letters. All right. Then, in terms of your recovery, we need one of the 2 following pieces of information, right? So we need either the account name, again, that company name, or a phone number that's on the account, right? That's one of your customer-facing phone numbers. And then you click on the reset password bar here. This will send an email to you, right? This, in the body of the email, it's going to have a link that lets you get logged in just to your user page. That's where you would change your password. Then you come back here and enter that password again. And the main reason is A, to help you remember that password, but also you have the option here to click on Remember Me. So then you get signed in. Now, I'm using a test account that I use several times a week. So it's going to log me right here to my dashboard page. If it's your first time logging in, the system instead is going to take you to your user page. And you can always get back to your user page by clicking at your name at the top of the page. That first time logging in, you're also going to get the dash wizard pop-ups telling you what certain things are. But the main thing you would change here on the user page is your password. Just click edit, type in your new password, and again, and save changes. Now, as an admin, I also have access to the account level settings over here on the left. Typically, the main thing that's changed here is the time zone and possibly the display language, right? Or what the web pages look in terms of language. English, French, German, or Russian are your options. If you ever need to change the account name, you would actually need to email our billing team. That's billing@virtualpbx.com. They need to know what the current name is and what you want to change it to. There's several things they have to get synced up on their side. Once you're done here, there's a little close box over towards the top right. You just click on that, and that will take you back to the dashboard page. Again, the Dash Wizard will have pop-ups here. It's also going to have pop-ups on the User tab on the left and the Groups tab on the left. So speaking on the left, these tabs over here, these go to other core features of your Dash account, and we'll be covering most of those. Up here at the very top, again, you have your name we can click on to get back to that account page. Now, to the right, most of you will have a D&D toggle here to the right of your name, right? Or D&D standing for Do Not Disturb. You can click on that, and that turns on Do Not Disturb, meaning calls go to your voicemail. Right? You would click it again, so it's mostly black, and it would then be off, so you could take calls. The reason I don't have it is my user is part of the call center, part of the ACD queues, and once I was assigned to be a member of the queues, that D&D toggle was removed. All right. Next up here, I have a little phone icon, and that is for the web phone. This will only show up once you have added a web phone to your user. Once you do, it will be here, and then you can click on this. It'll open up a new tab and take you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. This allows you to log in with your Dash login information, same email address, password, account name. And then you can use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls. Obviously, you would want speakers and a microphone and an internet connection. But this does count as a VoIP phone. Next, we got the little graduation cap here. This opens up a new page, or new tab, I should say. It takes you right to our support pages. So you can look at various support guides. Some of them include videos, and most of them have screenshots, so you know what to expect to see. Little chat bubble, remember. Little menu icon, right? 3 horizontal lines, sometimes referred to as a hamburger icon. This takes you to other Dash features. Now, the majority of our training will be here on the dashboard, but we'll touch on some of these others, except for the advanced reports and the call center, which would have to be those other videos. You got a little arrow to the right icon here, and that's to log out of Dash. Here in the center, we have total users. I have 23. Right? These are people who make and receive calls. Right? Most of our plans are based on a per user basis. So the more users you have, the higher your bill is going to be. Then I've got total devices, 42, and a breakdown, a little pie chart here. First up, I have a soft phone. Soft phone means it's a software application that acts as a phone. Right? So it uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. So it counts as a VoIP device. If you don't already know, it's very possible. VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol, and that just means you're using your internet connection to make and receive calls. Now, the soft phone bucket here, that includes the VirtualPBX soft phone app, as well as any third-party soft phones you may have on the account. I've got, 13 or 19 of those. Then I've got cell phones, right? This is just adding a cell phone number. You can also add a landline number. One thing to know, when we send a call to a cell phone or a landline phone number, right, that becomes an endpoint for the call. Right? You can't transfer, so if you take a call on your cell phone, you're not going to be able to transfer that call to another user. Right? That's just the way, unfortunately, it works. Web phone, again, that Firefox or Chrome device to make and receive calls. And then here I have SIP phone. This is a piece of hardware. It's a physical VoIP phone, so it sits on a desk. Right? Typically connected via an Ethernet cable to your router to get out to the internet to then make and receive calls. There are other kinds of physical VoIP phones on the market. So when you're shopping, you definitely want to make sure you're looking for a SIP compliant or SIP compatible phone. Down here, I have unregistered devices 2, and that means I have turned off 2 of my devices under my devices tab. I've just disabled them temporarily for whatever reasons. Then I have total numbers. I have 36 phone numbers on the account. Every account includes some number of phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. It's going to vary by plan. Uh, if you just signed up with us, I would suggest checking the pricing page and seeing what numbers are included and what the overages for extra numbers are. I believe it's $1.99 per number. But again, double check the pricing page. If you're on an older plan, you'd actually want to check with our account services team so they can verify how many numbers are included and what any overages are. Then I have a little breakdown here of assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned number, that's a number you're using, right? Someone can dial that number and expect to leave a voicemail or speak to somebody, join a conference, or send a fax. Spare numbers, just a number you're not currently using for whatever reasons, whether it's you're about to open a new physical location and you don't want that number in use yet because you don't have staff there, or you had a promotion end and you don't want calls coming in on a defunct promotion. Then I have USDID and US toll free. US toll free is actually US Canada toll free, right? 800 number, 833, and 888 all the way down to 833 currently. USDID, just a US local number, right? So if you have a number in San Jose, California, it could show up under this bucket, as well as if you had one in, say, Dallas, Texas. You can have international phone numbers on your account. If you'd like to have one, you'd want to email our porting team, and that's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. They will need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in. They will let you know if that is possible or not, and if there are any additional requirements, like proof of address or etc. Those requirements come from the country in question that you're trying to get a number in. That's not something we can control. Conference bridges, I have 8. That means I have enabled the conference feature on 8 of my users. Right? So I have 8 people who moderate or run a conference. Now, if we go over here towards the top right, my main number box, I've got 5 phone numbers here. These 5 phone numbers all behave in the same fashion. Right? So they're all going to the same location, and they're all playing the same main greeting. Obviously, you can have multiple main numbers, or you can only have one. If you don't want to have a main number, that's something you pretty much have to do at the beginning of your account setup. Basically, you would just assign it to like a user example. Conference number, you can have multiple conference room numbers. They all go to the same set of conference rooms. This is the phone number everyone dials, whether they're your staff members, your vendors, your clients. That's the number they dial to join a conference. Then you have the main fax box number. This becomes your inbound fax number. It also lets you set up your fax box so you can set up outbound faxing for your staff. Then we have the company directory links. First one here is a CSV. So this downloads a spreadsheet file, shows your staff members their first and last names, their extension numbers, and their devices. The soft phone download link here, this is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. Right? So if you're using our app on a Windows or Mac, you can download this file and then upload it to your soft phone on your computer. This will allow you to see the status of the other VirtualPBX soft phones on your account. So if everyone's just using a VirtualPBX soft phone, then you can see their status, right? If they're on a call or not. Now, if you have a mix of devices, right? So, my coworker Bob has a VirtualPBX soft phone, but he also has a Yealink phone. I won't be able to see if he's using his Yealink phone. I can only tell if he's using his VirtualPBX soft phone. The VirtualPBX store, this is a link, opens up a new tab, takes you right to store.virtualpbx.com. This is where you can buy things like a VoIP phone or a router, any other piece of hardware. Then we have the account realm. The account realm is used in a couple things. It's one of the 3 pieces of information you would need to provision or program a third-party soft phone. It's also used for sending a fax out. So if you set up your fax box to allow for outbound faxing, then you actually don't need to log into you don't need to log into your Dash account to send a fax out. You just need to go to your email address that's used for your logging into your Dash account, create an email like you normally do. But in the to field, you put the plus sign, the number one, area code and phone number you're faxing to, little at symbol, and then you put in your account realm, right? So this thing here. And then you would attach a PDF or TIFF. The system will not look at the subject line of your email. It doesn't look at the body of your email. It's only going to send one attachment. So make sure it's your PDF or TIFF file that you want to send out. The largest file I've been able to send out is a 7 MB PDF document. That took over an hour before I got the confirmation. So it does take a while for a fax to get processed and get then sent out. Up here back towards the top, I have this caller ID section here. I can click on that, going to expand it out. This is your company caller ID. This pull down lets you select any of your main numbers. Unfortunately, it doesn't work properly here, so I do apologize for that. But again, you can select any of your main numbers. Whichever one you select becomes your default number for, say, your VoIP phones when they make an outbound call, among other things. You have the option here to enter company caller ID name information. So in the box here to the right, you can input up to 15 characters. That includes spaces or special characters. So be aware of that. And then this is what we transmit as in addition to your phone number as part of your outbound caller ID. Then down here, you have your company emergency information or E911. This is again for if you have to pick up your VoIP phone and dial 911. This is the default address that we will send. Now, for each of your phone numbers, you can have a different physical address associated with it for the purposes of E911. This then allows you to assign those different phone numbers to your individual VoIP phones, so that way they can have the correct phone number and address when or if your staff members need to pick up their VoIP phone and dial 911. It's the correct address for their location versus like your corporate headquarters, where maybe not everyone is situated at. Now, that particular feature is specific to E911, right? So if they make an outbound call normally, by default, it's going to be this number up here, right? One thing to know, any changes you make, click on Save Changes. If you entered information in the company caller ID name field, or the CNAME field, right? This gets transmitted to the other carriers who support this feature. It takes them about 3 business days to update their databases. It can be sometimes faster, but 3 days is the standard that we've been given. That means when you make an outbound call from your VoIP phones, right? We send this phone number and then this text as part of your caller ID. When you make that outbound call, it goes through several carriers before it reaches that destination phone number. If any one of those carriers does not support CNAME, your CNAME information does not reach the destination. Right? Just your phone number gets through. That destination carrier, right, that last carrier, they receive the caller ID information and the name. They get to decide, are we pushing that all the way through, right? So it gets to the phone number that you dialed. Do we instead, or they can say, oh, they get the number, they look up their own database, which could have different information than what we've transmitted, and instead send their information through. Or they just simply say, no, we're only sending the number through. This is particularly true for when you're calling cell phones, right? Cell phone carriers typically do not participate in CNAME, and from the ones I have encountered, most of them want to charge their subscribers an extra monthly fee in order to have that feature show up on their cell phones. So basically, when you're calling cell phones, more than likely, your company name information will not show up. All right. Hold music. This allows you to upload your own hold music. Now, You click this upload button, you find the file on your computer. Dash will play back .wav and .mp3 files, right? .wave, .mp3, up to 1 MB. As a recommendation, I recommend recording in mono. That will save you some space, so you can have a longer file. A 1 MB MP3 is roughly 5 minutes. Now, this whole music, when it plays, right, basically what happens is call comes in, reaches your staff member on their VoIP phone, right? They pick up the call, they start talking, then they press hold on their VoIP phone. That's when this music file will play. You also have a pull down here to select any existing file that you have already on the account. But if you make any changes, right, like finding a file, click Save Changes, it will upload and add it there. Now, hours actually takes you to main number, but I want to go over adding users and groups first. So we're going to go that route here. So users page shows all your users on the account. The people with the blue suit icon, those are your system admins. As you can see, I have several system admins on this account. The people with the gray person icon, those are your standard users. They have very limited access. In fact, they can basically check their voicemail and a couple other settings. They're not going to be able to see like these other user pages or their main number pages or anything like that. Up here at the top, you click on Add User, and you basically fill out the form, right? So first name, last name, should be pretty easy. You just need to put some kind of text here. The email address used for login needs to be unique for each user, right? So you cannot reuse an email address for several users. This email address is how the system communicates with the user, right? So password reset information or your voicemail notifications, right? They're all going to go via this email address by default. Password, you create a password for the new user. Main extension. So here you can enter in an extension number. This system was started with extension 1000. So the system is suggesting the next available is 1018, but you can always change it. You can type in whatever you want. I usually recommend making use of 4-digit extensions. This gives you a lot of versatility in terms of what you want to do, or what you can do. By default, the system will create a voicemail box for the user. So for instance, if you created a user and you add a VoIP phone to that user, it gets registered. They can pick up that VoIP phone, dial *98 and click send on the VoIP phone. That's going to log them directly into this voicemail box that you just created for them. The system will then walk them through creating a voicemail box PIN number, as well as then walk them through creating their voicemail box greeting. Right? So then they're all set up. Here's your option to have the user show up in the user directory. Just put a check mark if you want them to, right? Or leave it blank if you don't. You can always change that later. This option here, send emails to an alternate address. If you put a check mark here, then you need to put an email address in this other box. This is if you want those password resets or voicemail notifications to go to a different email address than the one you put in for the login. Right? It's not sending it to both. It's only going to send it to this alternate one instead. And then this box here, send credentials to the user. I normally tell people to put a check mark here. This is so that way that new user gets an email welcoming them to Dash, as well as here's your login information. If you only need to create one user, click on Create User. If you have to add multiple, create user and add another, and the box will come back. Once a user is created, you can click on their name. So if you need to change the name, you can do so here. Here is where you would change their credentials, right? Change their email address or password. You also have the option here to click on the password reset email. So the system will send them an email so they can change their own password. Here's your option to change the voicemail box PIN number. Just enter 4 digits and then save changes. Here's your option to send to an alternate address. Here's the be in the user directory. Over here to the right, this little person icon, this pull down allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin into a user. Little time icon here, this allows you to change the time zone. Typically, we tell in the United States, we say search for like Los Angeles, Denver, Chicago, or New York. Ringing timeout by default is 20 seconds. Now on this user, it's grayed out because this user has a feature enabled called Follow Me, which that controls the ring time instead. 20 seconds default is plenty of time to send a call to a landline or to a VoIP phone. If this user was only using a cell phone, you would want to increase this to 30 seconds, maybe even up to 45. And then any changes you make, click on Save Changes. The extension box, you can click on that so you can add multiple extensions to a user. Right? You just click on the box here, enter their new extension number, and then click Save Changes. Phone number box. Users can have their own phone numbers. You have the option here to add from spare or buy new, right? So add from spare, that means you're reusing a phone number or using a number that wasn't in use and putting it in use, right? Buy numbers, that means you're adding a new number to the account. Now, you're not actually, let's say you just signed up with us and you're just adding your first phone number. You're not going to get a bill for that first phone number, right? Your account includes at least one phone number, if not several. It's just how the engineers decided to say add numbers. So add from spare, click here, shows your available numbers. You click on the box in front of the number or numbers you want to add. You click on add selected, and then you would click on save changes, and then would add it here. By numbers, you have your options here for local or toll free. So toll free, you need to know, you selected the toll free prefix you want to work with and click on search, and the system will provide you a list of phone numbers that are currently available. Now, this list of phone numbers is dynamic, meaning you're actually competing with other people in real time. So what you want to do is when you click add, right, you can add multiple numbers at once if you want. You can keep scrolling down to have more numbers populate. But once you're done selecting numbers, you want to click on by numbers. Right? Just because you add it to your cart here, you haven't reserved the number. So conceivably, while I'm talking, someone could have bought this number, right, gone all the way through, clicked on buy numbers, and they have the number. I'll get an error saying that the number wasn't available. Or I can just click buy and we'll see what happens. So basically the system does verify that the number was truly available and then is adding it and activating it to your account. And you see it here. And then I click Save Changes. You do need to click Save Changes to make sure it stays. Now, you see next to phone numbers, I have this little icon here, little like 2 pages. If you see that on any of these boxes, whether it's extensions or phone numbers, etc., that lets you know that there are multiple. And then you can choose to unassign a number if you want. Now, these numbers have a little gear icon here. You can update the caller ID, right? So you can update the CNAM information here for that particular phone number. You can turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAM information, right? That means that someone is showing you their name with their phone number. If you have this on, this will get sent through to your staff members' phones so they can see it on their end. E911, again, you can add that address to each individual phone number so it's relevant to that person, or that person's location, excuse me. Prepend is a VoIP phone feature. You can add text in front of the caller ID that shows up on their phone's displays. So it gives them a heads up about what the call might be about. If you don't want to use a number on a particular location, you would just click unassign next to it and save changes. Now, you haven't deleted the number from your account. You've instead just made it a spare number, so you can use it someplace else. Devices, this shows your devices on the account, and if you click on the device box, right, you have the options from add from spare or add new devices. Just going to go with new. Right, so SIP phone, that physical hardware, right? You have these manufacturers to choose from. Some of them have a lot of phones, some of them less than 10 or 12. No matter which make and model is, right, you find the make and model that you're working with, then down here, you give it a name, like Bob's phone or warehouse phone, just something that helps you identify where the phone is or who it goes to. Uh, Typically, I recommend against using things like phone 1, 2, 3. 6 months from now, you may not know where that phone really goes to or who it really belongs to. MAC address, this is unique to each phone. Typically, it's a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, you can also get this information usually under its status area or its basic settings. But you would enter that information here, and then you click on Create Device. Now, we'll go down here to Bob because he already has a physical phone here, this J-Link. Once you've added it and saved changes, right, it's here. You can see it here. What you want to do is go to Advanced and then select Miscellaneous. And then where it says Allow Reprovision, click on Unlock, Save Changes, and then Save Changes here. That tells the system, let this phone get provisioned, right? You can then log into that phone's web user interface. Typically, that means getting the IP address of the phone, putting that IP address in the address bar of your web browser, hopefully on a computer on the same network as that phone. You can then access that phone's web user interface, and you would need to enter in a URL. Basically, you would go to that phone's auto provision section, enter the URL, and tell it to go here to get its config file. For the specifics of that, you want to click on the little graduation cap icon here, go to and that takes you to the support pages, do a search for auto provisioning. It's going to take you to the auto provisioning document. It's going to have screenshots for these various manufacturers in terms of what to look for and where to go, as well as the proper syntax for that URL, and usually some other settings just to verify. When you go through all that, the phone's going to reboot a couple times, typically. It will then show up as a green device, so you can then use it to make and receive calls. Right. Next up, cell phone or landline. Again, you still give it a name. And then here, you put in the number, right? +1 area code and number. So if we go up to Aaron here, this demo device. All right, so I gave it a name. And then I put it in here, like +1 area code and phone number, right? And then save changes. As I mentioned before, when we send a call to a cell phone or landline, you can't transfer that call out. Right? You have to handle it at that point. So call comes in, reaching out to Aaron's cell phone here, right? His cell phone rings, he picks up. When he picks up, he's going to hear the system. It's going to tell him, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. So when he presses 1, he's telling the system, yes, he's there, and yes, he wants to take this call. Right? The system hears that one tone, it then connects that inbound caller to him. Right? He can then speak, hopefully handle a customer issue. Now, that's great if this is actually Aaron's cell phone. But let's say, for instance, I've contracted out with another company to handle my after-hours calls. Right? So I said, yeah, here's a phone number. Just send your calls to this phone number, and our automated system will handle the calls for you during your after hours. Right? That's great. I would just come to my Dash account. I would add it as either a cell phone or a landline, and put it like this. Now, I'm going to go to advanced options here. This is the default setup for a cell phone or landline. When we send that call to that phone number, right, by default, we're playing that message that this is a forwarded call to please press 1. An automated answering service doesn't know and probably can't press 1. Right, because it's not an actual person listening in, it's a computer. So in that situation, you would want to come to this page here, and where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail or landline's voicemail, put a check mark here, click on Save Changes, and again, save changes on the following page. Now when we send a call to this phone number, we don't play that message that this is a forwarded call, please press 1. In fact, when we hear that pickup tone, the system just connects the call. So no need to press 1, no warning about it. It's just saying, hey, I heard a pickup tone. I'm just going to send the call through. right? Perfectly great if you're sending calls to an answering service. Maybe not great if it's going to a person, because what can happen is if this is Aaron's actual cell phone, right? So no longer going to an automated answering service, call comes through, his cell phone voicemail picks up. That's still a pickup tone. So we send that caller into Aaron's personal cell phone's voicemail. Now, some people want that. They think that's great. Other people definitely do not want it. So just be aware of that. The other thing that can come up is here is keep original caller ID. When the call gets sent to the cell phone or any cell phone on the account, by default, we're sending in that inbound caller's phone number, right? So customer Mary is calling, rings to Aaron's cell phone. On his cell phone's display, he sees customer Mary's phone number. Maybe he's been getting hit by a lot of robo-dialers. You know, by the end of the year, it will be an election season here in the United States, so we're all going to get hammered by all sorts of political calls. We don't recognize the number. A lot of people are going to let calls go to voicemail. In terms of your business, that could be bad. So what you might want to do is come here and uncheck this box here in front of keep original caller ID. Click on save and save changes. So now when a call comes into Aaron's cell phone here, instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number, go back to the dashboard. He's going to see this 408 phone number, right? My main number. So hopefully he would recognize the main company number and then he would answer the call. Right? And if it's not that, then he's like, well, maybe it's a robo dialer. Go back to users here. All right, now next option here, new device, soft phone. First, there's this warning message, which I do recommend reading at least once or twice, just so you understand. But basically, what it's saying is that because of wireless VoIP technology, if you dial 911 from your soft phone, that let's say you're using it on your cell phone, the wrong address may be sent to emergency services. So now we close that. And then we're going to get a larger box showing up here. Now, by default, this device is showing up as what was referred to as a third-party soft phone, right? So it's defaulting to say, hey, you're going to use someone else's soft phone application. If you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone, however, then down here, right below where it says View Configuration Guide, right, that link right below it, it says Use Third-Party Application. You can click on that. So now it says Use VirtualPBX application. Box is going to refresh. Give it a name, right? So Aaron's soft phone, right? Or Ariel's soft phone, I think is the user I'm on here, right? You click on Create Device, and then you click on Save Changes. When you click on Save Changes, what happens is the soft phone is created on the user. The user also gets an email letting them know that their VirtualPBX soft phone is ready. It's going to have the login information for that soft phone, as well as download links. Right? So now it's possible that your staff member here has two emails from Dash, right? One welcoming them to Dash, and a second saying, hey, your soft phone is ready. Both have different login information. Oh, one thing to note for the VirtualPBX soft phone, it's associated with the email address used for the user, right? The email address used for login. So, like for this user here, I would not be able to easily add two VirtualPBX soft phones to the same user because they have that one email address. The other thing here under new device I want to talk about is the web phone. You still get that warning, but you just need to give it a name. Then you click on create device and save changes. The web phone, as I mentioned previously, uses your Dash login information, right? So it needs to be associated with a user in order for it to work. Now, you can add devices on the devices tab on the left. I recommend against that for the web phone, right? Because it needs to be associated with a user. But also, if you're using the VirtualPBX soft phone, or you tend to, you're not going to be able to add it there. You need to add it directly to a user. Right. So then we have user features. First up, caller ID number. This feature you can only enable on a user that has their own phone number. Right? So if you assign them their own phone number, then you can turn this on right here. And what that does is you can then select a phone number on their user, and that phone number can be their outbound caller ID from their VoIP phones, right? Instead of the main number. All right, virtual text. This is if you want to make use of texting. If you just signed up with this feature may not show up right away. You would need to talk to our account services team to make sure to get it enabled. And then you would also probably have to go through the SMS registration. I have that webinar link in the description here. But once that's all set up, click enable, and then you select the phone number or account on the account, right? So either a phone number assigned directly to the user, one of your main numbers, or an auto attendant number. Then you can then text in and out from that phone number. The main advantage of virtual text is you can share numbers among staff members, so that way multiple people can keep track of the text conversations with your customers. Now, if you enable virtual text on a user, they get an email welcoming them to virtual text. It's going to have login information. There'll be a download link so they can download the virtual text app to their mobile phone. You can also access virtual text via a web page. Right? Just go to, in your address bar of your browser, just go to virtualtext.app. Still have a login, and then you can manage your texts that way. So it's possible that this user would have three emails from VirtualPBX with 3 different logins, right? One for Dash, one for their soft phone, and one for virtual text. That is something that I would say, save those emails in a particular folder or however that works for you. All right. Voicemail box, excuse me. Click on this, click to enable. Now for your new users that you create yourself, this will be by default on. If you're the only user on the account, right? It's your first login. You first need to assign yourself an extension number before you can enable this feature. By default, though, voicemail is the email. That means the system will send you an email. In the body of the email, there'll be things like the date, the time, the phone numbers involved, the extension number, and there'll be an MP3 attachment. So you can just double click and listen to it right on your computer. One thing to know is voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and cannot accept any more. By default, you have 3 ways to check voicemail messages, but only 2, or for a user, right? 3 ways to listen and 2 ways to remove, right? So obviously the first way to listen is that email notification. That doesn't delete them from your voicemail box. However, by this default setup, your staff members can call in, right? So call into your main number that goes to a virtual receptionist, dial *97 if they're using a cell phone. If they have a VoIP phone, they can just do *98, which goes directly to their voicemail box. They'll need to be entering their voicemail box number and then their PIN number. They can then listen to their messages over the phone, and they'll be given an option to delete the messages as they listen to them. The other way is via the user portal. So all your staff members, they can log in to dash.virtualpbx.com, even if they're not a system admin. However, if they're not a system admin, it's going to only take them to their user portal, which defaults them to their voicemail tab, so they can listen to messages directly in their browser and then delete them there as well. Now, if you have a voicemail box or a user who doesn't want to go through the user portal and listen to more over the phone, they just want to use their email, then you might want to do this, which is delete the voicemail from the voicemail box after that notification email is sent. I just put a little check mark here. Now, the downside of that is that means the user can only ever check their voicemails via email. So if they, for some reason, don't get emails, right? They may lose voicemail messages. And then any changes, you click on Save Changes. Follow Me, this is for users with multiple devices, which I don't think Ariel has. So let's go up to, or down here. Click on Follow Me. So here, you see the three devices are enabled to take calls. Now, I can disable this and save changes real quick. Click on Follow Me again. Now, if I re-enable it, this is what it starts off looking at. Everything is on Do Not Ring. Right? The system wants me to tell it which devices to make use of. So I would go through and uncheck the ones I want to use, and I can do all 4. Now you notice they all start at 0 seconds and end at 0 seconds, which probably not very useful. I can click and drag these green bars and extend the ring times. Right, so they all start at the same time, but they end at different times. Now up here, these are timestamps, so I can change this ending number here, so it's only 60 seconds long. Right, it defaults to 120. I have this big distribute button. I can click on that. So now the calls will always ring in this order. Now, these are for calls that are coming to my user directly. Right? So someone enters my extension number or someone else transfer the call to me. It will follow this order. I can change the order. Right? I can click and drag. Let's say I can make my cell phone last and do something like that. Click redistribute, click distribute again to reset the order. Now, if my user is part of a group, which we'll be talking about next, calls from my group that come to me are going to ring all of my devices at the same time. It's not going to use the follow me feature at all. So something to be aware of. And then any changes you make, click on Save Changes. Fax box, you can decide to have your users have their own fax box if you want them to. Just click Enable. You have an option here to add a spare number, buy a new number, or assign a new extension. I recommend making use of a phone number. Right? By using a phone number, this person can send and receive faxes. Right? If you choose to assign a new extension number, first you have to give them a second extension number, but secondly, that limits what they can do. Right? First and foremost, they're not going to be able to send a fax out because the system is going to use their fax box credentials, so the extension number, as its outbound caller ID, which is going to fail because it's not an actual phone number. The other thing is you actually limit who can send this person a fax. Like electronic fax services, at least the ones I've encountered so far, they don't allow you to add an extension number. They just let you send fax to a phone number, and that's it. Right? So you're limiting who can send a fax in. Conference bridge. You click to enable, and then you need to give them a PIN number. Your staff members can change this PIN number on their own via the user portal. Enable video conferencing by default is disabled. Even if it's enabled, it's only for your staff members, right? People on your Dash account. Anyone outside won't be able to make use of video conferencing. Call forwarding. You have off, on, or failover mode. Your staff members can turn call forwarding off or on their own, at least via the user portal, or if they have VoIP phones, they can actually do it directly from their VoIP phone. Failover mode is something a system admin has to set up. So you click on failover mode. You choose cell phone, a mobile phone, or desk phone, or landline. It doesn't really matter, at least as far as I've seen. And then under the number, you put in +1 area code and phone number. Right? No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Click on Save Changes. So what failover mode is, staff member has a VoIP phone, right? It becomes unregistered. Right? They lose internet connection, right? Dog ran by, ripped the Ethernet cable out of the phone, whatever. Call happens to come into user at that time. The system will automatically forward the call to the phone number you designated. Customize call recording. So by default, when you enable it, it looks like this. right? Nothing's being recorded. You have to tell the system the kinds of calls you want recorded. Inbound internal, right? Coworker Bob called me. Right? Inbound external, customer Mary called me. Right? Outbound internal, I called coworker Bob. Right? Outbound external, I called customer Mary. So we typically see something like this, right? The external ones or all four. And then click on Save Changes. Your account includes some amount of data storage as part of your monthly plan price. If you have a high amount of calls, right, high call volume, and you're recording every call, you'd want to talk to our account services team because you may want to look at AWS integration. That means you need to have an Amazon Web Services account, right, AWS. That way you can link that AWS account to your Dash account and have the call recordings stored via AWS, just because typically at high volumes, it's much cheaper with AWS than with us. Music on hold, you can choose to have your own users have their own hold music, right? Again, this is after they press hold on their web phones. You would just click to enable. Either find a file on your system or upload a .mp3 or .wav file under 1 megabyte. And typically I recommend nmono. Click the up arrow icon and then save changes. I usually use the example like you want your sales team to have hold music that's talking about their promotions or specials that are going on, whereas like for your support team, you might have hold music that is talking about going to the FAQ page. Do not disturb. When you click enable, basically you're saying this person's not taking calls. Calls to them will go to voicemail. Hot desking. This is a VoIP phone feature designed for like hybrid scheduling or shared office environment. So you click to enable. You give them a hot desk ID. So if you're using 4-digit extensions, for example, I just say make their hot desk ID their extension number. You can choose to have a PIN number, have to, and then save changes. So, right, I come into the office on Tuesdays. Right, I sit down at desk number 2. I pick up the VoIP phone. I hit *11. That turns on hot desking on that phone. It asks me for my hot desk ID. I give it, and then it tells me that calls will now be sent to me at that device. Right? So the rest of my workday, calls are coming to me at desk number 2. End of my day, I pick up the VoIP phone again, hit *12 to turn off hot desking. Next time I roll into the office, right? Angela's sitting at desk number 2. I say good morning. I then move over to desk number 4. Pick up the handset, *11, enter hot desk ID, and now I'm getting calls at desk number 4. All right, so once you have users and their devices, you can then go to groups, for example. Groups are departments. So it allows you to send calls to multiple staff members and either have it ring like in a specific order or ring them all at once. So up here at the top, you click on Add Group. You need to give the group a name. You need to give it an extension number. And then you click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group. Right? And then you click on Create Group. Right? Once it's created, it shows up here. You can click on the name. Right? So you can change the name if you want to. Here you've got the group call attempts, little arrows to the far right. So you can increase or decrease that. This is how many times the system will offer calls to the members of the group. Right? So multiple attempts to people to give them a chance to answer. Here's your option to remove a group. Otherwise, you click on Save Changes. Then we click on the Members box. So here you see my staff members who are assigned to the group and how calls are being offered to them. In this case, this is ring all or blast ringing, right? So calls come in, rings to all of them at the same time for the same amount of time until someone picks up. Right? So whoever gets the call first gets it. Now, like I mentioned under the user features, if I have staff members with multiple devices, right? Calls from this group are going to ring all of their devices at the same time. It's not going to make use of the follow me feature on the user. Just ignores that completely. Now, that's one way to know it's a group call when you have 3 phones and all 3 of them are ringing at the same time. You're like, oh, it's from the group. Now, like the follow me setting up here, you have timestamps, right? It defaults to 120 seconds, but you can change it down to 60, for instance. You can click distribute. So now calls will always ring in this order, right? So always ring Bob, then Aaron, then David, Michael, and Orlando every single time. So call comes in, Bob picks up. He's helping the customer. Second call comes in, the call is still going to be offered to Bob. It's not going to skip him, right? So that second caller has got to wait 13 seconds or 12 seconds. Then it's going to be offered to Aaron, right? So then Bob and Aaron now are on calls. Third call comes in. Third caller has to wait 24 seconds before it actually gets the person who can actually answer the call. Now, these are sliders, right? So you can slide them forward, for instance. So there's less over time for holding for that person to come in. Or you can go back to the way I had it set, where it rings the whole time. Now, if we go back to distribute, let's say I want to change the order. Let's say Bob has a project I need him to focus on. I would want to move him to the end. Now, he's still at 0 seconds, so he's not actually at the end yet until I click distribute. Right now, he's at the very end. Down here, I have the option to add more staff members. All right, so we can actually, right, and I can click distribute again. And let's say, oh, no, Bob needs to be at the bottom still. All right, and if you make any changes, click on Save Changes. The remove, obviously, if you need to remove a person from the group, because they don't need to be here. Now, you want to avoid having a gap here. So then you would just click distribute again to rebalance. Extension number, all right, you need to have that extension number for a group when you created it. You can always add additional extension numbers if you want to. Groups can have their own phone numbers, right? So you can buy new or add from spare. Again, you get the little gear icon here, and then save changes. And then there are group features. First up is ring back. So call comes into the group, gets offered to your staff members. Their phones begin to ring. That ringing sound is then piped back to the inbound caller, right? Ring back. Now, if you don't want that sound to come through, then you would click up here to enable the ring back settings. And then you can select an MP3 or WAV file or upload one. And that file will play instead of that ringing sound. Again, .wav, .mp3 recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. We just click the upload icon here, find the file, up arrow, save changes. Next up is next action. To me, this is the most important group feature. You click to enable, and then if no one picks up, what do you want the system to do with the call, right? Where are you forwarding it to? You got this pull down here. You can select it to a particular voicemail box. You can send it to a user. You can send it to a different group, a call queue if you're making use of the queue. You can send it to a particular phone. And I believe you can send it back to your main menu. Yeah, you can send it back to your main menu if you are so inclined. Caller ID prepend. This is for your VoIP phone users. You can add additional text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. I recommend using one or the other, not both, because that can be confusing. The downside of adding additional numbers is that it can mess up the caller ID if you try to call back directly from your VoIP phone, right? Because it adds that extra digit. All right, so after you've added users and their devices and any groups that you want to create, let's go to main number. So here you've got your main company numbers, right? You can unassign new ones. You can buy new or add spare ones if you want to add new ones. You got the little gear icon to update the caller ID, E911 or prepend information. Then we've got the office hours strategy. You can choose to be open 24/7 or have custom office hours. If you choose custom office hours for each day of the week that you're open, put a check mark in front of it, and then select your open hours in 24-hour or military time. Right, so here you see I'm open Monday to Friday from 8:30 a.m. until 4:30 p.m. And I'm based in LA. Down here at the bottom, you have the option to have the system closed for lunch, right? So each day of the week that you're open, you can have it closed for lunch at the same time every day. Just click on the box in front to enable it, set your lunch hours in that 24-hour or military time, and click on Save Changes. Next up, you have office holidays. So if you're closed for holidays, just click on the box here, and you'll be closed for holidays. Over here to the right, it says Add Holiday. You have your options here for single day, date range, or advanced. Each one of those creates a new row, right? So single day, like I have here, you give it a name, you choose the month and the date, save changes. Right? Date range, like I have here for the Christmas holiday, gave it a start date and then an end date, save changes. Now, date range, there's actually, as you can tell, there's no year indicator for any of these. So for date range, we recommend against having a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, just as a precaution. There was some odd behavior way back long ago. I haven't seen it happen in years, but just to be safe, we recommend against that. Advanced, like I have here for Thanksgiving, give it a name, choose the month. This pull down, you have the options of 1st through 5th, as well as last, and then the day of the week, and then save changes. If you want to remove a holiday, click on the little trash icon. Next up, we have incoming call handling. So this is how my system is handling calls from my main numbers. Right, so those 5 numbers I have at the top. During my open hours tab, I have an at lunch hours tab because I said I was going to be closed for lunch. I have an after hours tab and a holidays tab. Right, so let's say if I didn't have lunch hours, right, I chose not to put that check mark there, this tab wouldn't be here. Right, these options are basically the same. The first 3, so call comes into the virtual receptionist, call comes into this pull down, and then virtual receptionist, etc. These first 3 show up all the time. That 4th one at the end, the far right, that only shows up under a couple circumstances. One of those being if you have multiple auto attendants, and one of those attendants or one or more of those attendants are available in main menu. If you had some custom work done with our services team, they may have put in what's called a custom call flow for you. All right, so calls come in during my open hours. I'm saying they go to my virtual receptionist. This is a link, so I'm going to click on it. It's going to open up a big old box. Interesting. All right, so you see my main menu. These are the buttons people will press to navigate through your phone system. Right here, you click on Add Route to create a new row. This pull down, you have the choices of 0 through 9, plus the star key and the default action. And then here, the second pull down is where you want it to go. So here, right, the Smart PBX directory, dial by name directory, right, user directory. Here, you have then you have the options for any users you've added to the account. Right, so you can press 1 to speak to Cody, for example, or to Bob, etc. Scroll down. Now you have call queues. So call queues are an advanced version of groups. They're an upgrade feature. So you may actually have to change plans and then have a fee on top of it to have queues. Something you'd have to talk to our services team about. Right, groups, any groups you created can be a menu option. Devices, so a specific phone, not always recommended, but still an option. Voicemail boxes, right? Press 0 to leave a voicemail. Pretty common. Media files, so you have like directions or hours of operation. However, after that media file ends, the call ends. So something to be aware of. And then advanced call flows. This would be if you're having, again, multiple auto attendants, and you made them available in main menu. For instance, you want a Spanish option, right? So then you would have a Spanish greeting play with Spanish menu options, etc. Over here on the right, then we have your greetings options. So greetings, basically where you say thank you for calling, you give your organization name, and then you give instructions, right, in terms of what to press to navigate through your phone system. First up, you have text-to-speech. Here you can type in a greeting that will be a computerized or robotic voice. The system will allow you to type in about 250 characters. It does not count spaces. Uh, this, I've been able to get text-to-speech greetings up to about 300 characters, but 250 works consistently, and that's characters, not words. Uh, Now, you don't have an option to name the file for text-to-speech, right? So once you type in something here, you click Update, you click Save Changes. The system names it for you, right? So in this case, it'll be my main open hours menu, and then TTS, text-to-speech. Now, let's say I didn't like that, what I have. So then I say, oh, I forgot something. So I come back in here. Oops. Right, so I click Update and then Save and Save Changes. Now I'm going to have two files named main open hours menu TTS. So my recommendation is after you make a text-to-speech greeting, right, especially if you're just starting off, right, or your startup company, or you're just not used to using PBX systems, if you make use of text-to-speech, after you create one, I'll close this window here. Over here on the left, click on Greetings. You'll be able to find the text-to-speech greeting you just created. Rename it to something that you'll recognize. You can upload your own greeting files, right? .wave, .mp3, recorded in mono. Choose the file, click Upload. You can choose from an existing recording. You see here, I have a main open hours menu TTS. This pull down is going to show you all of your media files on the account. Main greetings, voicemail greetings, hold music files. They'll all be here. That's why you want to name any text-to-speech greeting something you can easily recognize, so that way you don't have 5 main open hours menu TTSs. You can record over the phone. Now, when the system says pick up a phone registered to the account, it's saying actually pick up a VoIP phone on the account. Then you would call into your main number, and then you would enter this PIN number. Now, if you just signed up with this and you had a main number assigned, if you called your main number right away, you would hear a message saying that the greeting for this menu has not been recorded yet. It will then prompt you to record your voicemail greeting, or your main greeting, sorry. Even if you have let's say you had a text-to-speech greeting in place instead, you can still record your main greeting over the phone, even though there's already one there. In that instance, when you hear that main greeting start to play, you would enter in the PIN number, and then the system will walk you through recording your voicemail or your main greeting over the phone. Now, when you record over the phone, the system doesn't allow you to give the file a name, right? So that first time, it's just going to name it basically your account number .recording or something like that. If you have a recording in place, right? So main open hours menu TTS is currently playing. I call in and record over the phone. That recording that I make is going to replace the current file that I have in place, meaning main open hours menu TTS, the file name stays the same, but the content gets changed to whatever I just record over the phone. And I bring that up just because during like holiday season, that can cause a problem for people. Professional recording service. When you click on order down here towards the bottom right, this is going to open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings, where you can order a professionally recorded greeting. Right? They have like 100 actors and actresses to choose from. They bill you directly via credit card. And then they deliver to you via email, right? So then you would come back here and go to upload your own file. Now, settings. First up is number of retries on this dial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. or basically how many times the main greeting will replay, right? So call comes in, they hear the greeting, and they press 7. Well, that's not a valid option here. So then with one retry, the system would then play the main greeting again and let them make a second attempt. Now, after that second attempt, it would either go to the default action, or in this case where there is none, it would just end the call. Say, we did not recognize your entries, goodbye. Dialing timeout measured in seconds. This is how much time the system listens for an additional button press, right? So that caller calls in, presses 7, and the system waits 10 seconds to see if they're entering a multi-digit extension. After that 10 seconds, then the system would play the main greeting again. Allow outside recording. Actually, by default, I should change these to their default. There, right? Set to off. Now, what that means is to record your main greeting over the phone, the system will, when it's off, it only allows you to do it with a VoIP phone on the account. If I turn this back on, now I can change my main greeting with a cell phone or a landline. Basically, it's a security feature, so that way people can't randomly, hit your PIN number and then change your main greeting. Allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on. It just means if someone calls in and enters a valid extension number, the system will transfer the call to that extension number. And then the suppressive playing of invalid entry. So when the system has, or the customer has made too many invalid attempts, then the system says, we did not recognize your entry, goodbye. If you don't want that message to play, you turn this one on. So now the system won't play that invalid message. Which you would probably do if you're having calls go to a default action to like a user or group. So any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, or your settings, you click save here, and then you click save changes here. All right, so the second option here is designed for a live operator answer, right? So you're offering the call to a person or group of people, so they have a chance to answer the call. And if they're not able to, then it goes to your virtual receptionist. Right now, because this is my lunch hours, I have a different set of menu options here. I likely would have a different greeting and settings, or potentially. Oh, sorry. So this is a pull down, right? So you can select other staff, particular staff members, groups, or queues. Those are the most common. You could select a specific device, right? It's going to offer to it for about 20 seconds before it goes to the virtual receptionist. I would avoid selecting things like voicemail boxes or media files, as that can be confusing to the inbound caller. This option here, so you have a media, you can choose again the pull down. So you can offer to a user, a group, a media file, etc. And then if they don't pick up, you can select the voicemail box. But also you have this option here at the very end, just send them straight to voicemail. Right. So again, we typically see this for holidays, especially for a 1 or 2 person shop. We're like, hey, we're taking the holidays off. All right, main conference number, you get a multiple conference room numbers, right? So you have the option here for add from spare or buy new. You have the custom greeting here. This is a text-to-speech greeting. So you click enable, you type in what you want it to say. Even if you don't have anything here, the system will will say welcome to the conference and then prompt the inbound caller to enter the conference room number and then the PIN number. Main fax box number, you can only have the one main fax box number, but once you do, then you can click edit the fax box. This first field up here is for your inbound notification. Basically, it's designed to put an email address in this field here. That person or email address gets an email every time an inbound fax comes in. Right? They get an email saying with the date, time, phone numbers involved. There'll be a PDF attachment for the fax. Now, if someone dials your fax box number, like say from their cell phone, right? They get the fax tones, they hang up. At least most of us would. This person, oh, excuse me. So if someone calls in, hangs up, this email still gets an email saying, hey, you had a failed inbound fax attempt. It'll have the date, the time, and phone numbers. Now, sometimes the caller ID information will also come up in that email. So if it says wireless number, for example, you would want, that would tell you that, oh, this was a wrong number. You don't have to worry about it. Otherwise, you would want to talk to the other person who's faxing to you. Email permissions, this is for your outbound faxing permissions. Generally speaking, designed to put your company email domain here, right? So what I'm saying here is anyone at VirtualPBX can send a fax out on this account, even if they're not a user on the account, right? They just need the proper format, that +1 area code and phone number, and then my account realm. You can also put a specific email address in there. You obviously want to avoid putting things like an @Gmail or .Yahoo, because if people figure it out, then anyone at that domain could fax out on your account. All right. Auto attendance. Auto attendance is a plan-specific feature, meaning it's available on some plans and not others. Designed to give you multiple auto attendants that can be used for submenuing, for instance. So you can have one for English, two for Spanish. Those would each have their own auto attendants on this page, where the English would have an English greeting and go to the menu options would go to English-speaking staff members, where the Spanish auto attendant would have a Spanish greeting and go to your Spanish-speaking staff members. The other use case we have or that we encounter is customers with multiple businesses, right? So they want all these multiple businesses on the same account. Makes it easier for billing, for example, right? Now, they could have the same staff people answer calls on these multiple accounts. But in either case, up here at the top, you click on Add Auto Attendant. Right? You give it a name, and then you give it an extension number. Now, this extension number is not something your customers necessarily would know. Right? This is something your staff would use, though. They could transfer calls to a particular auto attendant if they needed to send callers to, say, your Spanish-speaking staff. Then you click on Create Attendant. When you create attendant, when you click on the name, it defaults to this, saying it's unavailable in main menu. This just means it's a standalone auto attendant, meaning it's a separate business. Now, you can click on that. Now it says available in main menu, right? So now it's a submenu option, right? So it can show up under your main menu or even an option for next action in your group, so for example. Auto attendants can have their own phone numbers, right? Which would make sense since they could be their own businesses. You can add from spare, buy new. They can have multiple phone numbers. You can also do a little gear icon for E911 or BPEND. Auto attendants can have their own extension or multiple extensions if you want them to, excuse me. And then you would click on Save Changes. And then you've got the little wrench icon here under Settings. So here you've got open hours, lunch hours, after hours, and holidays, right? That's going to match what you set up under your main number, right? So the same hours of operation for your various attendants. If you have a business that's 24/7 and another one that is Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, then you'd want to talk to our services team about seeing what your options are. It could still be possible to have one account and multiple auto attendants, or even with custom work, customized call flow. All right, devices. This shows your devices on the account. right? Red, unregistered. Black means you turned it off, meaning you disabled it under this column here. And green means it's registered or we can send calls to it. Up here at the top, you can add devices, right? Same options as under the user. The main thing I want to point out is trying to add a soft phone on the devices tab, right? You don't have that option to change it to, from use third-party application, right? So basically on this page, you can only ever add a third-party soft phone. You're not going to be able to add a VirtualPBX soft phone. Now, for your physical phones, if you click on the wrench icon here under Edit, under Audio, you want to make sure G711A and G711U are the selected codecs. Those are the ones that work best with us. You could actually leave it without any, and the system will use those by default. But if you ever have any kind of problems, you want to make sure that you have those in place. Emergency information, right? This is where you would select a particular phone number. So that way you can have the correct E911 information for this phone. And that was the main thing. For the VirtualPBX soft phone, you want to make sure the codec in place is Opus, OPUS. But again, most phones are going to use that G711A and G711U. All right, Greetings tab shows all your media files on the account, right? Hold music, main greetings, voicemail greetings, etc. You can add new ones up here at the top by clicking Add. This lets you give it a name, right? And then you find the file on your computer. Click on Create Greeting, and it's added here. Now, it's not assigned any place, but it's on your system, so then you can use it from the pull downs. Here, you can see the greetings that you have on the account. You can see the source, right? So upload means you uploaded the file. TTS, text to speech. Recording means it was recorded over the phone. You have the play icon here. Oops. This allows you to play back the greeting directly here in your browser. If for some reason it doesn't play back on your browser, then you want to go to the download column here, download the file to your computer, and listen to it on your chosen media player. And then the wrench icon here, this allows you to change the name of the file or even remove a file if you no longer need it. All right, numbers shows your numbers in use, right? Shows where your numbers are assigned. You cannot unassign them here, unfortunately, but you can see where they are, right? You got the little gear icons, so you can update the caller ID, E911, or prepend. Spare numbers shows your numbers that you're not using. So if you want to get rid of some numbers, like let's say you like this account has a lot of numbers, I want to reduce my bill. Click on the box in front of the numbers. And you see here I have an option to delete. So I will then click on that. And I have now removed those phone numbers from my account. Up here you can buy, right, local or toll free. So in this case, if you're buying them here, it's just adding them as spare numbers that you would then use, add from spare. Port starts the port process. Right, you click on new port, give it a name, choose local or toll free, click next, and now the system wants a PDF copy of your bill. Needs to be dated within 30 days. Basically, the porting team needs a copy of your bill and a completed and signed LOA, letter of agency. This process allows you to download a blank LOA as well as upload the completed and signed one. The LOA information should match what your current carrier has on file in terms of the company name associated with it or the person's name, the address, and who should be signing for it. It does need to be signed, right? So just printing your name or typing your name twice won't work. In general, Toll-free numbers take about a week for a port to complete, assuming everything is correct. Local numbers average about 2 to 3 weeks. If there's an error, we double check to make sure there wasn't like a typo, especially from us. Or if there's alternate information, like in terms of address, if there's 2 different addresses, we try them both. But after that, then we let you know, hey, we're getting a rejection for this reason. You need to contact your current carrier to find out what the correct information should be. Right. Voicemail boxes shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. Any voicemail box that was created with the user will have an entry here under this third column. Right? If it's blank, that means you either created the voicemail box on this page, or the system created the voicemail box in case of the main voicemail box. Up here at the top, that's where you would create your own voicemail boxes. This is what you would do, for instance, to create a voicemail box for a group. Right? So you don't want it to go to a specific person, you want it to go to that department. You give it a name, give it a voicemail box number, and a PIN number. Right, then you click on Create Voicemail Box, and now it's existing. Click on the wrench icon under Advanced, Greeting Media. You can upload your own files or choose from an existing file. Excuse me. So the media file will be like your default normal greeting. Right? The temporary is for your out of office or vacation message. So if you have something selected under temporary, it will play, right? It will supersede anything selected under media. Once you turn temporary back to none, then save changes, then the media file will play. Recipients. So your user voicemail boxes already have a built-in recipient, right? That email address used for login. But if you need to add additional recipients to any voicemail box, whether it's a user voicemail box or one you just create, you come here under Advanced and Recipients. You click where it says Add New Recipient, and then you put the email address. If you need to add more, you click on Add. Otherwise, you would click on Save Changes. And then you have options. So once a voicemail box has a recipient and a media file in place, then you can click the box in front of Already Set Up. All right, you can double check to make sure that attach voicemails to email is enabled, and then if you want to delete that for notification. All right, call logs. This shows the call history on your account. You have today, this week, this month, and custom. So a green arrow to the right is a call coming into the system. You can click on it to expand, and you can see here it went to this device. If I go down here, oops, you can see I have a call come here. I was offered to 2 devices, right? This one first, and then this other one. Yellow arrow to the left is an outbound call. So coming from this particular soft phone, going out to that phone number. You have the little fire extinguisher icon, excuse me. This allows you to report a call. So it creates an email for you to support@virtualpbx.com, and it has the technical details of the call. Please type in the context, i.e., why are you sending us this email? Right? The technical details won't always tell us why. You can download this file. It's a CSV file. So if you're good with spreadsheets, you can get quite a bit of information out of the call logs. All right, this month gives you some more. Oops. The custom, this allows you to set your date range. So for instance, I can do it from March 1st, click filter, and now I get all of March's calls. And again, I can download the whole file. The system will let you go back up to 12 months. If you need to go back further, our engineering team can go back a total of 18 months, so 6 more. Anything beyond that, we're not able to recover. If you need your call log data for some kind of compliance reasons, I would recommend downloading at least monthly. Feature codes, I have talked about a couple of these. Right, these are ways for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phone. This is a web page on our support pages. There's also another page, a PDF file called the Phone Commands Cheat Sheet, right, which basically has the same information, but it has the context help here as well, basically on how to use it. That's the dashboard. So next up, blacklists. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system. Right, so you click on Edit Blacklist. If you need to create a new one or you haven't created one at all, click Add. Otherwise, you can click on an existing list. You need to give the list a name. And then you need to choose, are you blocking anonymous calls or not? Right, so anonymous call means call comes in and we're not getting the caller ID, the phone number. Right, so if we turn this on, that means those calls aren't getting through. They're going to get busy tone. If you leave it off, they get to come through, right? So they can ring to people. After that, down here under list of existing numbers, you click add number, put +1 area code and phone number, right? No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. And keep clicking add until you're done adding numbers. Once you're done, click save. Then up here at the top, click back to settings and make sure your lists are over here on the right under selected and then click update. Right, so I have these 3 lists here. So every phone number on these 3 lists, if they try to call into any of my phone numbers, right? So main number, user number, group number, whatever, they get busy tone. Right? They're not getting through. That's an included feature. I didn't say that earlier. Next up, we have faxes. This is your fax manager. So this lets you get to any fax box on the account. So here I can see the inbound faxes to my main fax box. I can see the date, the time, the phone numbers involved. I can download the file and see it here. The outbound fax tab, again, I can get to any fax box on the account. I can see I have a bunch of successful ones, which is a good thing to see. If you see a failure here, that means we had a problem communicating with that other phone number. Whether that was because the line was busy, or maybe we had an initial connection, but then something interrupted, right? Like so someone picked up the handset on the other side. Or some other kind of system disruption. But you see the date, the time, phone numbers involved. You can download the file as well. The email to fax log, if you see information here, that means we had a problem processing the request. Right, so you see the email addresses involved, the date, the time, little eyeball icon. So here you can see this person isn't a user on the account. Right, so this, and since it's a Gmail account, it's likely they used their personal email address, not the work email address. We go up here. You see here, I have no valid attachment. Maybe it was a wrong attachment, or maybe they simply forgot to attach the file. Number Manager just basically takes you back to your spare numbers. Reports is advanced reporting, right? So this opens up a new tab and takes you to reports.virtualpbx.com, has its own login information. Unfortunately, it doesn't show well here, but if you go into the links on the description here for the advanced reporting demo, you'll see some of the reports you can do. But again, this allows you to create your own reporting. Voicemails takes you to your voicemail box manager, so you can get to any voicemail box on the account. Oh, sorry about that. So you can do a search here. So as an admin, right, you're checking anyone's voicemail boxes so you can see if they're full, right? You can see with the new messages, the date, the time, how long they were. You can play it back. You can download it. Also, as an admin, you can click on the box in front of it so you can move it to a different voicemail box, or you can change its status, right? So you can get rid of it. SMS registration. This is if you want to make use of texting. This will explain the SMS registration process. Here's where you start the registration. Click on the register button down there. And here's where you would see the status. For more information, again, in our description links, I think it's the first one. You want the business SMS registration webinar, and it's where a member of our customer or the account services team explains the registration process, and I believe answers some questions. And this was from a couple weeks ago. Next up, call center. This actually opens up a new tab, takes you to callcenter.virtualpbx.com. It uses use your dash login to log in. This is where any of your staff members who are part of your call center or your ACD queues would go to access their queue information, right? So this is where they would change their status from ready to away or end their session. They would select their default queue device, right? A little phone icon. They can click on that, select their VoIP phone, and then they can take calls in the queue. Unfortunately, it doesn't show up here. So in the description, you would want to go to the ACD Queues Pro demo. That's going to show you what the queues can do. Queues are an advanced version of the groups, right? You have different routing options like round robin, which equalizes out over time, or most idle, right? So whoever's been waiting the longest for a call gets the next call. The queues, you can also, as a manager can eavesdrop in on a call, right? So they can listen in. They can whisper to their staff member or barge in. And there's also some metrics that the queues page will display. All right, dynamic caller ID. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phones. So you would click on create rule and you give it a name. Then you choose a phone number on your account. Then you choose what, basically between these first two. Are you going to use a feature code or an area code? So in this case, I chose whenever my VoIP phone users dial a 408 area code phone number, change their outbound caller ID to the 669 area code. Right? 669 is an overlay for 408. And then you would click on Save Changes, right? So any of my VoIP phone users, they dial 408, their phone number, outbound caller ID changed to that 669. Now here, if my staff members on their VoIP phones dial *550, and then the area code and phone number they're reaching out to, the system's going to change their outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. Right? So it looks like a local call to the people they're calling. Monitor, another plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your other staff members. It doesn't matter what phone they're using, right? So if they're on a call via blue box, you can see who's busy, who's available. You can also switch by devices. Over here, you have active incoming calls. So you would see the active incoming calls with a blue box and who they're speaking to among your staff. And then for parked calls, if you have any, they would have their name, the phone number, and then their parking spot number. Recording Manager, this opens up a new tab. It takes you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. It uses your dash login information to log in, and that is where you would view your call recordings. Right? You can download them, you can play them back, and you can delete them. Webhooks is a plan-specific feature. You'd actually want to talk to our sales team about this. This is programming, but this allows you to link your Dash account to other software. From the links in our description, you want to go to the intro to Zapier, because that also has some webhooks. But you click here to create new hook. Basically, you fill out the form, and then you need other software on the other side, like Zapier, to link your Dash account to, or AWS is also another example. If you go to the website developer.virtualpbx.com, you can see sample code of what we have done in terms of linking Dash to other software as well. And then we have the user portal. So every user on your account has access to their very own user portal. You as an system admin will not be able to access someone else's user portal, but that's because you have access to everything in general. When users get to their user portal, they are defaulted to their voicemail tab. Now, if their voicemail box is set up to delete after notification, they'll never have anything here. If your staff members, if you didn't do that for your staff members, right, then any of their voicemails would show up here. They would show the status, right, new, listened, or marked for deletion, I believe. Date, the time, phone numbers involved, how long it is. They can play it back. They can download it. If they click on the little box, then they can change its status, right? So mark as new, mark as listened, mark for deletion. call history. They can see their call history. They can change the date range and filter, and so they can see their history of their calls. The fax tab only works for users with their own fax box, but they can see their fax history. Contact list is everything within your Dash account. Right? Basically, this makes it easier for your staff members to transfer calls to other users or to a group or auto attendant, etc. This is not something they can edit on their own. Right? This is basically just view only. They can change like how many records show on a page, but that's about it. Conference tab. So for users that have conferencing enabled, over here on the right, this is where they would adjust their voice, their PIN numbers, right? For either being as a moderator or for their participants. Over here are the options to have people join muted or deafened. And then you have entry and exit tones. When they're in a conference, the little plus icon here allows them to invite other Dash users to the conference. You can lock a conference so no one else can join. You can mute everybody, unmute everybody. You can end the conference call. Also, while you're in a call, right, each moderator and participant has their own box in the relevant section. This allows you to mute a specific person or even kick out a specific person. Settings and devices tab. Right here is where your users can enable call forwarding on their own. They just put the check mark here, enter in the phone number, right? +1 area code and phone number, and number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses, and then click on save, and they can see the status of their devices. And that is everything. Ran slightly long today, so I do apologize. I was having some coughing fits there. We'll be here next Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific. Again, we do record these, so you can always come back and review this later. Thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.